Hey there, Joey here for School of Motion, and in this lesson, we'll be taking a look at how to build a better glow effect than what After Effects has to offer us right out of the box. The built-in glow effect that comes with After Effects is really clunky to use and limits the looks you can achieve. The way that I'm gonna show you how to build a glow effect will give you a lot more flexibility to really dial in the look you're going for. Don't forget to sign up for a free student account so you can grab the project files from this lesson as well as assets from other lessons on the site. Now let's jump in.
So I have a comp set up here and there's one layer in it, which is this Photoshop file. And I picked this Photoshop file because it has a lot of contrast in it. And when you have images with lots of contrast, especially when you shoot these things on film, a lot of times you'll get natural glows. And that's why compositors and motion graphics artists add glows a lot to these types of images. I also chose this image because it's very, very saturated. And when you add glows to images like this, there's a lot of problems you can run into. And I'm going to show you how to deal with those and some better ways and cool effects you can get using this technique. So to start with, I want to show you the way most people go about adding a glow. And when I say most people, I mean most beginners that I've worked with and other freelancers and people who don't know how to do this new technique, which I wish everyone knew how to do. So what I'm going to do is go up to Effect, and I'm just going to add Stylize Glow. All right, so there you go. There's your glow. Now, the first thing I don't like about the glow effect is that it's not that easy to dial in the look you want. So what the settings are called on this glow effect are not that intuitive. Now, I know what they are because I've used this many, many times. So, let's say that I want a little less glow here. So I would bring down the intensity, right? Okay. But now I want the glow to come out further, so I would increase the radius. But now I'm noticing that there are things glowing that I don't want, like this area here, this white area on this red pyramid. So I figured out, okay, well maybe that's the threshold. The threshold's set too low, so I need to raise that. So I'm going to raise that up. But in doing that, I've actually lowered the intensity as well. So now I need to crank that back up. So it's this constant dance to get the look you want. And then at the end of it, let's say I want the red pyramid to glow more than the green pyramid. I can't do that unless I, maybe break this up into layers or create some adjustment layers, but then that creates its own problems. And then there's not that many settings as to what I can do with these colors. Let's say I wanted to desaturate these colors. Well, there's really no good way to do that. So what I'm going to do is delete this, and I'm going to show you one more problem with the glow effect, which is actually a bigger problem, in my opinion. If I add the glow effect to this layer, and all I've done is created a quick little comp to show you guys with just a shape layer in it on a gray background. I'm going to add the glow effect to this layer. You'll see now it's glowing. And we can control the radius and everything we can before. Now let's say we wanted to animate this glow from off to on. Well, if I just bring the intensity down to 0, look at this. We get this little buddy, this little black halo around our layer that we don't want. And to get rid of that, we also have to bring the radius down to 0. So when you animate this on, you're not just animating a glow on, you're also having to shrink and grow the glow. So it's not a great effect to animate either. And you get these weird, I really don't understand why you get this black halo, and it's annoyed me for years, but that's one of the reasons I don't use this glow effect anymore. So let me now show you the way that I usually make glows, and hopefully you guys will start to get some cool ideas about how you could use this technique to create new glows and get cool effects that wouldn't be possible any other way. So first I want you to understand what a glow is. And the way I think about it, all a glow really is, and I just duplicated this layer just so I can show you guys. All a glow is a blurred version. So I'm going to add a fast blur to this layer. It's a blurred version of a layer added over it. That's it. See how it now looks like it's glowing? Now that's a very simplified version of it. But in essence, that's what a glow is. It's sort of the image that has bright areas blurred, and then that blurred copy of the image is added or screened, or maybe burned or dodged over the image, okay, depending on the effect you're going for. All right. So what's great about thinking of glows this way, all right, I'm going to delete this layer for a second. What's great about this is that you can think of a glow as its own layer, and you can have total control over that layer, including the brightness and darkness of that layer, how much that layer is blurred, how much of that layer you even want to show, the saturation of that layer. So let's say that we want only the red pyramid to have a glow on it, and we only want the top of the red pyramid to have a glow, and we don't want this white part to glow, only this red part. So with the glow effect, that would be a lot trickier. With this technique, it's actually pretty easy. So what we're going to do is going to make a duplicate of this layer, Command-D, and I'm going to add a levels effect. All right. Now, when you make something glow, and generally when I make glows, I use the add mode on the glow layer, because you get that nice bright popping effect. All right, I'm going to undo that. So when you add something, if your glow layer has any black areas in it, that part of your glow layer will not show up. Only the bright areas show up. So I use that to my advantage by using the levels effect to crush the blacks to make everything disappear that I don't want to show up. All right? And when I say crush the blacks, that's what this arrow does on the levels effect. It brings everything to black to the left of that arrow, okay? Now, you might think that I want to crush those blacks all the way till only the red showing up. I don't need to do that. I just need to make this little arrow, this little white arrow that was within the red pyramid, go away. All right, so now that is pretty much gone, now I'm going to add the fast blur effect to this layer. I'm going to have repeat edge pixels turned on, and I'm just going to blur a little bit, all right? And you can see that when I blur it, it starts to crunch in a little bit. So I need to uncrush those blacks just a little bit, all right? And then you can even push the whites a little hotter if you want to. Until I actually turn this into a glow, I don't know what it's really going to look like. So I'm just going to leave it there. And now if I set this to add mode, now you'll see something strange has happened here. I have basically made my comp very dark. Now the reason for that is because we are in 32-bit mode. Pretty much all the time now I work in 32-bit mode. It's a better way to composite, especially things like glows. They work a lot better in 32-bit mode, and there's some really complicated reasons why. I won't get into those now, but I'll show you how to fix this. And just to prove to you that this is actually what's going on, if I switch to 8-bit mode, my glow works now, right? If I turn this layer off and then turn it back on, you can see I now have a glow. But in 32-bit mode, I get this strange effect here. The way to fix that is you need to clip your blacks, all right? The short version of what's happening is when I crush these blacks, I'm actually creating black levels that are less than 0. And so when I add those black levels to the image underneath it, I'm actually darkening the image even though I'm adding. It's like I'm adding a negative number. Think of it that way. So in the levels effect, you can clip, where it says here, clip to output black. Right now it's off by default. I'm just going to turn that on. All right. So now we get all the glory of 32-bit glow compositing, but our blacks are not going to subtract if we crush them a lot. Okay. So now you can see this glow is pretty subtle right now. It's not doing a lot. And I'm just going to quickly rename this layer red glow so I can keep track. All right, so you can see what happens if I crush the blacks more or less. You can see now this is essentially the threshold setting of the glow effect. It's how bright does the image have to be before it actually glows, right? Think of it that way. So, but doing it this way is better because if I solo this layer, I can actually get a visual representation of the parts of my image that are going to glow. It makes it a lot easier to figure out where things are that need to glow. This fast blur is now the radius of my glow. All right. So if I just want a slight glow, I might just keep that around there. And now if I push the white levels, that's the intensity of the glow. All right. Now, my favorite part about doing it this way is now I can draw a mask on this layer. So I'm going to hit G, bring up the pen tool, and I'm just going to draw a mask just around the top of this pyramid. And I'm going to hit F so I can feather that mask. So now, maybe need to feather that a little more. Now I have this nice glow just on the top of this red pyramid. All right. Now, it's starting to look a little too oversaturated to me. That's pretty common with glows because you're also increasing the saturation of the image underneath the glow layer when you add the color of the glow to it. So the best way to deal with that is to desaturate the glow. All right. So I'm going to solo the glow layer so we can just see this is just the glowing part of the red pyramid. I'm going to add an effect to this. Color correction, hue saturation. And now I can desaturate the glow if I want to, right? Or I can add more saturation if you want to. All right, so if we look at this in context, if I bring down the saturation, you can see now if I bring it down too much, it starts to turn it white and kind of desaturate the image underneath it, which could be a cool look. It almost starts to look like a bleach bypass or something like that. I don't want to do that. I just want to bring it down a little bit so it's not such a screaming red color. All right, that's starting to feel pretty good. Now I feel like I want to see a little bit more of that glow, so I'm going to blur it a little bit more. All right, and I'm just going to push those whites a little hotter so we get a little more glow. That feels pretty good to me. I'm digging that. All right, and you can see if I turn that off, turn it on, it's just a nice little glow hit right there. And if this was animated, this is just a still, but if it was animated, if I animated this mask, then this glow would only be on this pyramid. I could totally control it. All right. So now I'm going to do the green pyramid. So what I'm going to do is duplicate my red glow layer. I'm going to rename it green glow. I'm just going to move the mask over. And let's say we want a little bit more of that green layer to glow. All right. So let's solo that green layer. We can see this is now the piece of the image that's glowing. All right. Now this green layer feels a lot more saturated to me than this red layer. And it could just be that the color of the pyramid to begin with was more saturated. So I'm just going to, on this green glow layer, I'm going to use this hue saturation and bring that saturation down even more. All the way to -100. All right. Now, just to show you guys some other cool things you can do with this, if I bring the saturation back up, now that this is on its own layer, I could actually affect the hue of the glow too. So if I want, I could push that glow more blue, right? And you can see the effect you're getting. I could push the saturation on it and then come back up here and bring the whites back down a little bit, and you can get this kind of cool glow to it, right? It's a bluer color than the actual pyramid underneath it. And because I have total control of this, I'm gonna solo this one more time. If this feels too bright to me, I can also mess with this bottom set of arrows here, which is basically the output level of the levels effect. This is the input level, this is the output level. If I bring the white output down, I'm darkening the white level. So if we unsolo that, I can control how bright that glow is on its way out too. So now I have my red glow, I have my green glow, and they're set very differently, but I can totally control each one. So now let's do the blue pyramid. So I'm going to duplicate the green layer. I'm going to move the mask over so I can see it on the blue. Now let's say for the blue one, I don't want the hue and I'm going to rename this blue glow. I don't want the hue to shift on this one, so I'm going to set the hue back to 0. All right, so now it's basically, it's a blue glow. All right. I do want to desaturate a little bit. I want it to be a little bit brighter, so I'm going to increase the white output, and I'm going to bring the whites, I'm going to bring the white input back in a little bit so it brightens everything. Okay. And I want to try a different blur on this pyramid. So if I turn this fast blur off and we solo this layer. So this is the part of the blue pyramid that we have isolated to glow. And we did that by using the levels. Here's the raw image. Actually, here's the raw image. And remember, we used levels to crush these blacks. So we only have this part that's going to glow. And then we used hue and saturation to bring the color saturation down so the glow doesn't blow out the color. But we have all these other blurs in After Effects that we can use, and they all do different things. And you can play with them, and I would suggest you do that because you can get really cool effects. You actually can recreate a lot of very expensive plugins that you can spend hundreds of dollars on by doing this technique and combining a few different blurs. I'm not going to name any names, but I'm just telling you, you can do it. So for this tutorial, I'm going to show you the cross blur because it's kind of interesting. What the cross blur does is it lets you blur, it blurs an image on X and Y separately and then blends those two together. It's sort of like using a directional blur horizontally and vertically and then combining those two layers together. It just does it in one effect. And you can add the two blurs together and you can get some interesting effects doing this. So I'm going to use this blur, and you can see you get this kind of cool hard edge to it when you do this, and you can really crank this up and get some interesting looking blurs. All right. So and now this blue, it feels a lot brighter than the green, so I feel like I need to make the green a little bit brighter and probably need to just kind of equalize the glow levels across all three of these. So anyway, you can see that using the glow, doing a glow this way is incredibly flexible. And if you see something on Motionographer or you see a commercial and you see a glow that kind of has a unique look, it's desaturated or it's a different color, or it looks like this, where it looks like it was blurred a certain way, and then you can create all of that and just add them to your base layer, and now you have a glow that you can totally control. So this is the way I suggest doing glows, and I'm going to show you one more thing before we end the tutorial. So let me just show you real fast. If I solo the original layer, this is where we started, this is where we ended up with our 3 glow layers. Now this is sort of the tedious way of doing it, and even though you can do it very quickly, sometimes you have a dozen layers that all need the same glow, and you don't have time to make masks and do all these things. So I'm going to show you a great way of doing that. So let's just say we wanted, I just turned all these glow layers off. Let's just say that we had our original layer and we wanted to make a good glow that we could then copy and paste and apply to other layers. So what we're going to do is pretend that we've duplicated this layer, even though we haven't. And we're going to add the levels effect. Crush the blacks. Okay, until we have just these parts of the image. We're going to add the fast blur. Okay. And now we need to uncrush the blacks a little bit, just like before. Okay. Now, at this point, we also need to make sure we have this set. Clip to output black needs to be on. Now, at this point, if we had a copy of this layer, and that was what we were working on, we would just set that to add mode. The problem is if you have a dozen layers that need this glow, you don't want to have a copy of every layer, making 24 layers now. That's one of the things about After Effects that I don't like is that a lot of things require you to duplicate layers that you really don't need to duplicate in like a node-based compositor. Luckily, After Effects has this cool effect that a lot of people don't know about, but it's incredibly useful, and I'm going to show it to you. If you go to Effect, Channel, CC Composite, all right? Now when you apply this, by default, all it does is take the original image before any of these effects, before the levels and before the fast blur have been applied, and it puts it back over itself. So you're basically back to 0, which is not what we want. All you need to change is this composite original. So what this effect does is it takes your layer, applies levels, then fast blur to it, then this CC composite effect takes the original unaffected layer and composites it with itself after you've put the effects on. All right, I don't know if that made any sense, but if I change this from in front to add, we are now basically adding the result of levels and fast blur to the original image. So we're doing what we did before using 2 layers with 1 layer. All right. And if you turn this effect off, this is now your glow that is being added to your original layer. All right. So what's great is that now we say, okay, look at this. This glow looks pretty good. Maybe we want to boost the whites a little bit so it's a little more intense, but then we want to bring the white level down. However, it's very saturated. I want to desaturate that glow a little bit. All right. So what's cool about this CC composite effect is that you can think of it almost like it's splitting your layer in half. If we now add a hue saturation effect to this layer, if I bring the saturation all the way down, you can see it makes our entire layer black and white. That's not what we want. If this effect comes after the CC composite, it will affect the entire layer. If it comes before the CC composite, so we just drag it above this effect, now it's only affecting the image, sort of the affected image before this effect. So if we turn this effect off again, you can see that this is now the result that is being added, because we're in add mode, to the original. All right. So this is great because if you had 5 other layers now that you wanted this glow with, you could just copy this effect stack here and paste it and have that exact look on each layer. This is useful for a lot of other things, but for glows, it's incredibly useful because you can stack a whole bunch of effects, and you don't have to use a fast blur. You could use the cross blur if you wanted. But as long as you end your chain with CC composite set to add, and it doesn't have to be add, it could also be screen if you wanted a little bit less intense of a glow. But as long as it ends with the CC composite effect, you get your glow, and it's all in 1 layer, and you don't have to mess with all those other layers and masking and all that stuff. So anyway, I hope this was really useful. There's a lot you can do with this. It really takes a lot of playing around with different effects to find what effects you can combine to make cool glows. Another thing I like to do is to add noise to glows so that it kind of breaks them up. And you can do that using this method. And that's all. So until next time, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching. I hope you learned a lot from this lesson on building your own custom glow effect in After Effects, and I hope that you can use this technique in your own projects. If you learned something valuable from this video, please share it around. It really helps us spread the word about School of Motion, and we truly appreciate it. Don't forget to sign up for a free student account so you can access the project files from the lesson you just watched, plus a whole bunch of other goodies. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.